Good morning. Well, we made it through the first day. And for the city of Atlanta, yesterday was probably our day of greatest responsibility. We hosted 50 official parties for each state delegation all over the metropolitan area, and from what I've heard, they all went extremely well. And we survived, I think, temporarily, and probably for the week, a number of potential labor management disputes and possible negative consequences of that. I think our law enforcement community did a wonderful job in trying to provide for the opportunity for peaceful protest, and yet restraining those who tended not to want to be peaceful. Yesterday happened to be the 91st birthday of Judge Elbert Tuttle. And Judge Tuttle was the chief judge of the Fifth Circuit during the Civil Rights Movement, and in that capacity was involved in assuring the rights of minorities to peacefully protest. One of the cases involved in that from 1964 was a case Young versus Davis, where the Ku Klux Klan was denying my right to peacefully protest, and the Fifth Circuit had to affirm my right to peacefully protest. And I found myself yesterday calling Judge Tuttle and telling him that it's gone full circle now, that I find myself in a position of having to provide police protection for the Ku Klux Klan and protecting their right to peacefully protest. We affirm everybody's right to protest peacefully, but we really cannot tolerate or allow in any sense any violence against person or property, or any attempts to physically disturb or disrupt this convention. And I think the law enforcement community did their job exceptionally well, with great patience and great restraint, and they provided a kind of calm and reasonableness in situations that could have been quite violent and quite disruptive. And so, having made it through that first day, I wanted to be at a ecumenical service this morning at 10 o'clock. In fact, I actually went, and that's the reason I was a bit late this morning. As the religious community of the city of Atlanta joins with the convention, and Protestants, Catholics, Greek Orthodox, Jews, Muslims coming together and giving thanks for the possibilities and hopes for America and the world during this week as a result of the Democratic National Convention. So thank you very much, and I'll be glad to be open for questions. If you go to the mic and identify yourselves.
Yes, my name is Sayom Shriver, and I'm a reporter for Vegetarian Times. Julian Bond, Bishop Tutu, Dick Gregory, Cesar Chavez, Ralph Nader, and 4,800 groups are boycotting McDonald's because of rainforest destruction, discrimination against black franchisers, destroying the ozone layer, causing cancer, and a number of other things. And we wanted to ask your opinion of that.
Well, I really will cop out on that one because it's the first I've heard of it, and I really wouldn't want to get into something that I haven't heard about. Thank you very much.
I'm Jim Galloway from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Then you all have done a very good job also. You make me proud of my hometown papers, with particularly the editions that you put out yesterday and today.
Especially with the Q&A. Regarding the Klan and anti-Klan clash yesterday, can we expect another attempt by the Klan to march anytime this week What lessons has your police force learned from that clash, and can we expect more aggressive policing if any similar events occur?
I think that as yet we have not had another request for parade permit from the Klan. At least we had not yesterday afternoon. We may have one this morning. If we get a permit, those permits will be given the same consideration. In fact, I think they are probably entitled to special consideration because they were denied an opportunity to have their demonstration yesterday, and it wasn't their fault. I think what we learned in that, we had hoped that we could have a convention with a minimum amount of police visibility. And we thought that 20 police officers, state troopers, and 5 or 6 city police officers was really adequate. We didn't want to give the impression that we were there trying to intimidate demonstrators with a show of police force. But we didn't anticipate the counter demonstration. We knew that there was a group that was opposed to the Klan directly across the street in Central Presbyterian Church, the Fannie Lou Hamer Convention. But we knew them, and we knew that they were nonviolent, and we knew that while they disagreed with the Klan, they certainly respected the right of the Klan to peacefully protest. We did not anticipate the kind of effort that occurred, and I think that the no business as usual campaign, which is a little different than most of the protests we've been used to here. And I think that now we will be prepared, and there will be larger numbers of police officers visible. They are here, but it really, disturbs me, and I'd hope we could avoid police officers in riot gear. But I'm afraid we can't. And I think the behavior of some of the people yesterday indicated to us that we're going to have a strong police presence at every public occasion to prevent any kind of similar conflicts occurring.
There was a clear attempt by police to avoid making arrests. I don't think there was a single arrest that came out of the clash yesterday. Is that going to be dropped? I mean, is there going to be a greater willingness to make arrests?
No, I think that our policy is that insofar as people are responding to the directions of the police officers, insofar as they are not doing any bodily harm or any physical harm to person or property, that we would do everything possible to avoid arrest. But we are perfectly capable and prepared to make arrests and make arrest on state charges where there will be charges brought and where there will be bonds charged and time served if they are found guilty.
I'm Harrison Chesting. I'm with KPOO Radio in San Francisco. Mayor Young, did your officials and law enforcement agencies in Atlanta study the San Francisco Convention as far as security? And did they learn any lessons, pro and con, as far as what to do and what not to do from a security perspective in this convention?
We studied San Francisco very well. In fact, the consultants for public safety that we have with us have been involved with the Democratic Party all the way back to the Democratic Convention in 1972 in Miami. And I went out personally and sat down with Dianne Feinstein and her staff and the police chief that was in charge at the time of the demonstrations. And we found all of that to be very helpful. I think we are limited by certain logistical considerations. We don't have, we made available all of the space possible immediately adjacent to the convention. I think you had a little more space. If I remember correctly, you had a couple of vacant blocks between the convention center and the hotels. We didn't have quite that much space available, so that there's a much closer proximity. The demonstrations in San Francisco were approximately a full city block away from the convention hall. Ours are right across the street. It means that we're in a little more difficult situation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm Bill Chappelle. I'm with the Atlanta Daily World. Do you have an update on the meeting that was supposed to take place this morning between Mr. Dukakis and Mr. Jackson?
No, and I suspect that meeting may still be going on. I'm not sure. But it wasn't scheduled to start until 8:30 or so. And I've had no report on that as yet.
My name is Liz Mardle from the BBC World Service. Don't you think it's surprising, in view of the fact that Jesse Jackson was the loser in the primary campaign, that he's been able to extract concessions from Michael Dukakis?
Well, I don't know that he has been able to extract any concessions. I think that that's what's being discussed. But our politics occasionally, particularly in the Democratic Party, tries to bring everybody together. I was deeply involved in the Carter campaign in 1976, and one of the things that made us successful in that was that we reached out to the candidates who lost and brought them in and involved them very actively in the campaign. And generally that's advisable. And I think that's what Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson are trying to work out now. Ways in which the Jackson campaign and Jesse Jackson himself will continue to be involved in that. I think, however, there's a rather racist analysis being done by this process by some of the press. There's an assumption on the part of, that if Al Gore is not given special treatment, or Paul Simon, that his constituents will still be loyal Democrats, and that they have a mind to think for themselves and will choose for themselves. And there's almost an unconscious assumption and projection by the press that Jesse Jackson's followers don't have that same intelligence and that same freedom to make a choice. And I think that that's nothing could be further from the truth.
Can I just ask one further question? Don't you think it's because of that element of racism that Jesse Jackson has been able to extract the concessions he has?
Well, I don't think he's extracted any concessions as yet.
Well, they're meeting. He's not going to come away empty-handed.
Well, I don't know that. And I think, though, that any political leader that, and I'm sure that there are meetings with many other leadership groups in the Democratic Party. The thing that is somewhat disturbing is that the press is focusing only on one. I frankly think that it's part of a process that's good for the party. And it's good that Jesse Jackson and Michael Dukakis are meeting. And I just wish that some of the other meetings were getting equally as much attention. But that's the element of drama. But it's only an element of drama because of the assumption that maybe black people will not vote. But I think the message of this election and the message, for instance, of 1986 and the rejection of Judge Bork is that America, black America, white America, America of goodwill, is very much aware of what's happening in this country, very much aware of the fact that the next president is going to appoint Supreme Court justices that will determine the direction of the country on into the next century. And there's so much at stake that I think everybody is very much aware of that, and we're going to be governing ourselves accordingly. This is an election that we've got to win. And Jesse Jackson has said in no uncertain terms that the reason he's coming here is to make sure that George Bush goes back to private life. And that's one thing that he and Michael Dukakis agree to. What they're discussing now is the best strategy to send George Bush back to private life. And I think that's, well, I look forward with great optimism that they are going to work it out.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Karen Wilson, WVEE and WAOK Radio here in Atlanta. Mayor Young, when you made your opening statements, you mentioned something about labor disputes. Could you expound on that? Is this the janitors thing, and what happened with it?
Well, there were a number of particularly tense situations between management and labor around the city. And most of those seem to be, if not resolved, and they're not resolved, at least willing to be disciplined and contained during the week of the Democratic Convention.
What's the status of the Justice for Janitors negotiations with Portman?
Well, I think that's what I'm implying, that I have not talked directly with either party, but from what I understand, that they are basically agreed that there will not be major demonstrations or a major campaign going on during the convention, but there will be a resumption of talks and negotiations once the convention is over.
So they're just kind of on hiatus.
It's on hold.
Okay, thank you.
So, excuse me for my bad English. I come from Paris. I represent here Le Monde and Le Monde Diplomatique. My questions are not on domestic affairs. Three questions, very precise. What's your opinion about Central America of the Reagan administration policy, especially towards Nicaragua and El Salvador? My second question is the relationship between United States and Cuba. Maybe some change. And my three question is the crisis Panamanian. What's your opinion about?
Well, let me see if I can deal with those briefly. One, I think Michael Dukakis has been very clear that he opposes the Reagan policies in Central America. And I assume that one of the first things he would do is begin to launch a new approach to Central America, an approach to Central America that really does take into consideration what America's real security needs are. America's security cannot be jeopardized by 3 million Sandinistas, but America's security can be influenced, if not jeopardized, by what's going on in Mexico. And I think I'm amazed that the major problems economically and politically that exist in Mexico have been almost totally ignored by the Reagan administration. And I think Michael Dukakis will have to begin to address a sensible Central American policy that is much more concerned about the security and stability politically and economically of Mexico and our relationship with almost 100 million people there, and less concerned or less obsessed with the problems of 3 million people in Nicaragua. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to neglect or ignore Nicaragua, but in working with the Contadora Group and the Arias Plan, I think a Dukakis administration working with our allies in Central America could make great headway in dealing with the problems of both Nicaragua and, in a very similar way, Panama. One of the mistakes of the Reagan administration is trying to deal with Panama unilaterally. There is going to have to be some kind of approach to the problems in Panama with our allies in that region. Now, I don't think anybody has said anything about Cuba. And I don't know that I'm ready to say anything either. I think that's one that is not right now a prime convention issue.
Dwayne Gay from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Mayor, some members of the Wisconsin delegation are insulted by the fact that they are attending a convention in your city held under a Confederate flag, which, as you know, is a part of your state flag. Are you insulted by that?
Not particularly. And, you know, I think one of the things that we've had to do in the South with some difficulty is try to build on the things that unite us and frankly ignore some of the things that may divide us. I take a very comfortable cop-out on that. I'm very comfortable with it because what the Confederate states adopted as their flag happened to be the cross of St. Andrew from Scotland. And since I'm Andrew, I feel very comfortable with that cross. It does stand for a certain amount of courage, a certain amount of Christian commitment to family and lofty ideals. There's some values of the Confederacy that are still very important in the South, that are embraced by blacks and whites alike. But secession is no question anymore, and neither is slavery. So I think I've been willing to look beyond those issues to the future. And I would apologize to you from Wisconsin for feeling that way. And maybe at some time in the future that might become an issue that we could deal with. But right now, we're concerned primarily about winning this election and bringing our country together. It's been very difficult almost these last 20 years, since 1968, when a forward movement of the nation suddenly was thwarted, first by the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy, and then a loss in the 1968 convention, and the beginning of attempts by the Republican administration to exacerbate tensions in the South and to subtly raise racial questions. Those continued into the Reagan years. We've been fighting a defensive battle, somewhat trying to hold the region and the nation together. And we haven't really paid much attention to the symbols of the past. We've been more concerned about developing new symbols that are based on a positive future together.
Were it up to you, would you change the flag?
I wouldn't particularly. I mean, you know, the only thing I'm upset about, I'm frankly more upset about the Star-Spangled Banner. I wish America the Beautiful were our national anthem, because you can sing it, and the words make sense, you know, and it bothers me to have a national anthem that nobody can sing unless they got a great voice. So I'm more concerned about that than I am the Confederate flag,
Well, I
frankly.
understand people have tried to change it a couple of times. Did you support those efforts? You didn't?
I didn't. I kind of ignored it, and I say I choose my battleground, and there's some things that, you know, I'm not really particular about fighting about. That's one of them.
Thanks. We're a little surprised.
Okay. But now
You're close to it.
there
Now we
are
can-
folk in Alabama that got very upset. There are folk on college campuses that got very upset. I just didn't. And so I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it didn't bother me.
Mr. Mayor, I'm Pat Murdoch of the Gwinnett Daily News. In response to questions about whether Atlanta was prepared or ready to host the Democratic Convention, I think at times you've been kind of frustrated by these criticisms and have even been quoted as saying that if they don't like Atlanta, the critics can go somewhere else. I wondered, do you think the media has presented a fair portrait of Atlanta so far?
I think the media presented a very fair portrait of Atlanta. I think it was even a fair judgment to say that we weren't ready. They were saying we weren't ready 3 weeks ahead of time. And the analogy that I used that the newspaper writer didn't choose was, I said, saying we're not ready now is like saying to a newspaper reporter, the newspaper's not ready 2 hours before deadline. And I frankly think that she got a little upset at my talking to her that way, and she talked back to me another way, and I finally said, you know, well, if we really flunk and people don't like it, and I shouldn't have said that. I apologize to the media for that slip. but the media has been very, very fair. They've been very, very generous. And one of the reasons I didn't mind the criticism, I wanted criticism before people got here. I didn't want expectations too high. And I think part of the reason why people are very impressed with us is that they came here expecting disaster. 3 weeks ago, the highways were in turmoil. And if you drive in from Gwinnett County, you realize how quickly they have shaped up those entrance and exits into downtown. It was miraculous the way they straightened out so much of our highway system. We hadn't really completed some of International Boulevard 3 weeks ago. We were still planting trees last week, but you know, when the deadline came, we were ready. And I think I have been so proud of this city that everybody, from the time people stepped off the plane right on up to the convention hall, we have seen the citizens of Atlanta do their job well. Now, we're almost ready to turn over the coverage of the convention to what's going on inside. We think we have created a favorable ambiance and environment for conducting good convention business. And I just hope it goes on as smoothly and efficiently in the inside of the convention the rest of the week as we've been able to keep it on the outside up to now.
Do you think there was some overreaction, perhaps, to some initial criticism by officials?
Well, I think that we're very sensitive to people who don't seem to take the time to get their facts together. And I think that two of the early articles to which we reacted, and I didn't react so much as generally the business community, was that there were some serious inaccuracies there. I mean, for instance, that the expressways were being rebuilt for the convention. That's ridiculous. These expressways have been in the budget for the last 10 years, and we've been working on them for the last 20 years. We will be working on them for another 10. The MARTA schedule was developed in 1973 to get to the airport, and it did. MARTA is really about 6 months ahead of schedule. That wasn't for the convention, but we did it. And Underground is a $140 million project, which we decided a year ago that it would cost us too much to try to rush it. And so we actually took our time and determined that we did not want Underground to be ready until really this spring. We wanted to take our time and do it right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Young, Julie Gauthier, CBS News. Yesterday, Louis Farrakhan was urging Jesse to remain strong and not accept concessions and to remain a champ to his constituency. Is he not a champ if he accepts concessions and makes a deal with Michael Dukakis and the Democratic Party?
Now, I would think that one of the challenges of leadership is producing for your constituents. And in order to produce for your constituents, you have to have some real power in the White House. And it's not concessions when you help get the candidate that your constituents are most comfortable with elected. And I think that if Jesse Jackson had not been running, Michael Dukakis would probably have gotten the majority of the black vote. And he probably would have gotten the majority of the worker vote, the Hispanic vote. He would have been the symbol of the Rainbow Coalition. And I think that helping him get elected is not a concession and not accepting a concession. It's really providing victory for his constituents. That one of the things that's hard for people to learn about politics is that there is absolutely no power in a convention. The only thing a convention can do is chart a direction to gain power. But the convention itself has no power. And so years ago, when we used to fight about credentials, and we used to fight about rules, and we used to fight about all kinds of things and then lose elections, turned out to be ridiculous. The rules of the convention don't make any sense at all unless those rules help you elect a president. There's no power to share if you don't win the election. And one of the challenges to Jesse Jackson's leadership is to find a way to help Michael Dukakis win this election. And if he does that, then he will be being true to his constituents, and he will be able then to help them meet their needs in the years to come. Any announcements that we need to make about today or tomorrow? Thank you very much, and we'll be back here for anybody that's interested tomorrow morning at 10 also. Let me say there is a brunch that we are sponsoring over at Spelman College campus, and I think the press is welcome there. Credential press is welcome there. And that will be going on from now until about 1.